Hey, I don't think you can afford what we offer here. Now get out of the way. Bank manager Diane Fletcher's voice cut through the polished silence like a blade. Diane reached into her drawer, pulled out hand sanitizer, and applied it slowly while maintaining eye contact. The sharp scent of alcohol filled the space between them. She then slid a plastic partition halfway closed, creating a physical barrier. "You're making our valued customers uncomfortable," she added, gesturing toward the marble lobby where other patrons had begun to stare. Terrence stood perfectly still, his $3,000 briefcase resting beside handcrafted Italian leather shoes. His bespoke suit screamed executive success, but Diane saw only her own assumptions. "Have you ever been treated like a criminal before you even opened your mouth?" 10:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the quarterly board meeting. Diane Fletcher leaned back in her ergonomic chair, studying Terrence like a specimen under glass. Her manicured fingers drummed against her nameplate in deliberate rhythm. The sound echoed through Metropolitan Financial's downtown branch. "Let me guess," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "You want to cash a check? Food stamps? Or maybe you're here about that loan you defaulted on?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Several customers in the waiting area turned their heads. A mother pulled her young daughter closer. An elderly man in a three-piece suit shook his head disapprovingly. Terrence maintained perfect posture, his hands clasped behind his back. "Ms. Fletcher, I'd like to discuss." "Don't Ms. Fletcher me," she interrupted, her voice rising an octave. "It's ma'am to you, and speak up clearly. I can barely understand what you're trying to say." She turned to her assistant, Rebecca Torres, who sat at a smaller desk nearby. "Rebecca, sweetie, call security. We have a situation developing here." Rebecca's eyes widened. She glanced between Diane and Terrence, then whispered loudly enough for the lobby to hear, "Should I hide the cash drawer?" Diane nodded solemnly. "Good thinking. And maybe alert Frank that we might need to call the police." Customer documentation begins. Maya Carter, a 28-year-old marketing professional waiting in line, couldn't believe what she was witnessing. She pulled out her iPhone and opened TikTok, hitting the record button. The red dot appeared in the corner of her screen. "This is absolutely insane," she whispered into her phone. "I'm watching pure discrimination right now at Metropolitan Financial. This man is clearly a businessman, and they're treating him like—" Her live stream counter showed 3 viewers, then 7, then 15. Security arrives. Frank Miller, a burly security guard in his 50s, approached with measured steps. His hand rested casually on his radio. At 6'2" and 240 pounds, Frank's presence filled the space around Terrence's chair. "Ma'am," Frank said to Diane, "is there a problem here?" "This gentleman," Diane emphasized the word with obvious sarcasm, "seems confused about what type of establishment this is." Frank positioned himself directly behind Terrence's chair. "Sir, are you a customer of this bank?" Terrence turned slightly, his voice calm and measured. "I'm here to conduct business, yes." "What kind of business?" Frank's tone grew more authoritative. The condescension escalates. Diane stood up from her desk, pointing an accusatory finger. "Now, sweetie," she said, using the same tone one might use with a misbehaving child, "this is a real bank, not a check-cashing place. We serve professionals here, people with actual careers." She walked around her desk, creating a physical barrier between Terrence and the rest of the bank. "I'm going to need to see 3 forms of ID, proof of employment, and, honestly, your parole officer's contact information." The lobby fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the soft beeping of Maya's phone as viewer notifications continued to pop up. Hidden power signals. Terrence's phone buzzed against his jacket pocket. The caller ID flashed briefly. "Board member, urgent." He declined the call without looking down. His briefcase, crafted from genuine Hermes leather with distinctive stitching, sat beside his chair. A first-class boarding pass from this morning's flight protruded slightly from his jacket pocket, the gold status level clearly visible. Maya zoomed in with her camera, capturing these details. Her viewer count had jumped to 47. The interrogation continues. "Sir," Diane continued, "I'm going to need you to explain exactly why you think you belong in our premium banking section. Do you even know what our minimum account requirements are?" She returned to her desk and pulled out a glossy brochure. "Basic banking services," she read aloud. "This might be more your speed, or there's a nice community credit union about 6 blocks away." Terrence remained motionless, his expression unchanged. "Ms. Fletcher, what services did I request?" The question caught her off guard. She blinked twice, then recovered. "Well, you're here, so obviously you want something you can't afford." Online amplification. Maya's TikTok live stream exploded. Viewers began sharing the stream link across social media platforms. Comments flooded in. "What is happening right now? Someone call the news. This is 2025? Get her name." A local blogger named Jasmine Reed, who had been grabbing coffee nearby, received 3 text messages about a racist incident at Metropolitan Financial. She grabbed her professional camera and headed toward the bank. Time pressure mounts. 10:52 a.m., 8 minutes until board meeting. Terrence glanced at his Rolex Submariner. The platinum case caught the overhead lights. Diane noticed the watch and scowled. "Nice watch," she said sarcastically. "I'm sure it's authentic." Frank leaned closer. "Sir, you need to state your business here clearly, or I'll have to ask you to leave." The tension in the room had become palpable. Other customers either stared openly or pretended to focus on their phones while clearly listening. The marble floors amplified every sound. Terrence finally spoke, his voice never rising above conversational level. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding about who I am." Diane laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. "Oh, I know exactly who you are." 10:54 a.m., 6 minutes until board meeting. The mahogany door to the corner office swung open with authoritative force. Branch manager Stephen Walsh emerged, his silver hair perfectly styled, his navy suit pressed to military precision. At 52, Walsh had built his reputation on maintaining Metropolitan Financial's exclusive atmosphere. His eyes swept the lobby, taking in the crowd of onlookers, the security guard hovering over a seated black man, and his manager Diane looking flustered behind her desk. "Diane," Walsh's voice carried across the marble floor, "what's this character trying to pull now?" The word character hit the air like a slap. Maya's live stream viewer count jumped to 127. Comments exploded across her screen. "Did he just say character?" "Record everything." Walsh approached with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged in his own domain. He positioned himself beside Diane's desk, creating a wall of authority. "Sir, you're making our customers uncomfortable. Look around." He gestured toward the lobby where a dozen people pretended to read magazines while stealing glances. "These are our valued clientele. They come here for discretion and security." The mockery intensifies. Diane, emboldened by her manager's presence, stood straighter. "He claims he wants premium services, Stephen. Can you believe that?" Walsh chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Premium services? With what collateral his bus pass?" The lobby erupted in nervous laughter from several customers. A well-dressed woman in pearls whispered to her companion, "This is exactly why I bank here. They maintain standards." Another customer, a man in his 60s wearing a country club pin, shook his head. "Unbelievable. They think they can just walk anywhere these days." Digital amplification explodes. Maya's phone buzzed with notifications. Her live stream had been shared 23 times in the past minute. The hashtag #BankingWhileBlack began trending locally in the greater metropolitan area. "This is absolutely insane," Maya whispered into her camera. "I'm watching 2025 segregation in real time. This man is clearly successful. Look at his clothes, his briefcase, and they're treating him like he doesn't belong." Her viewer count hit 289. Comments flooded faster than she could read them. "Get their names. Call the police on them. Someone call the news." "Is this real?" 3 blocks away, blogger Jasmine Reed parked her car and grabbed her professional recording equipment. She had 47,000 followers and a reputation for exposing discrimination. Someone had sent her Maya's live stream link with the message, "Racist bank incident happening now. Physical intimidation escalates." Frank Miller shifted his weight, moving closer to Terrence's chair. His radio crackled softly on his belt. At this distance, his imposing frame cast a shadow over the seated man. "Sir," Frank's voice dropped to a threatening rumble, "Mr. Walsh asked you a question. You need to answer or I'll escort you out." Walsh crossed his arms, satisfied with the intimidation display. "Frank, prepare to call the real police, not mall security actual officers with arrest powers." Diane pointed aggressively at Terrence. "He's been evasive since he walked in. Look at him. He's probably casing the joint for a robbery." The crowd turns hostile. A woman with bleached blonde hair and designer shopping bags stepped forward. "Excuse me, but some of us have real business to conduct. This is taking forever." Her voice carried the entitlement of someone accustomed to getting her way. "I have a 2 o'clock lunch at the club. Can't you just handle this situation?" Another customer, a man in an expensive suit, nodded in agreement. "This is exactly why property values stay high in this neighborhood. Proper security protocols." The crowd dynamic shifted. What had begun as curiosity transformed into mob mentality. Phone cameras emerged like weapons, but instead of documenting injustice, some customers seemed to be recording what they perceived as a troublemaker being rightfully confronted. Peak humiliation moment. Diane stepped closer, emboldened by the crowd's apparent support. Her voice rose to ensure maximum audience reach. "Let me make this crystal clear, boy." The word hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Maya's live stream exploded with capital letter outrage. Even some of the hostile customers looked uncomfortable. Walsh tried to intervene. "Diane, perhaps we should—" "No, Stephen. I meant what I said." Her face flushed with indignation. "Boy, you are in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong tax bracket." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Maya's viewer count spiked to 487 as people shared the clip across every social platform. Online explosion. Jasmine Reed burst through the bank's front doors, her professional camera rolling. She had watched the live stream during her 3-minute drive and arrived just as Diane delivered her devastating insult. "I'm Jasmine Reed from Metro Justice Blog," she announced to her camera while keeping it trained on the scene. "I'm witnessing what appears to be blatant racial discrimination at Metropolitan Financial." Her arrival shifted the energy. This wasn't just a random customer with a phone anymore. This was documented journalism with a wide reach. The encirclement complete. 10:56 a.m. 4 minutes until board meeting. The scene had evolved into a perfect storm of humiliation. Terrence sat surrounded, Frank looming behind him, Walsh and Diane positioned in front, hostile customers forming a semicircle, and cameras capturing every angle. Walsh leaned forward. "Sir, security footage shows you walking back and forth outside for 10 minutes before entering. That's suspicious behavior." Diane nodded vigorously. "Exactly. We have protocols for people who don't belong here. We reserve the right to refuse service to your type." Frank's hand moved to his radio. "Sir, I need you to place your hands where I can see them and step away from the desk. Now." The calm before the storm. Through all of this, Terrence remained perfectly still. His breathing never changed. His expression never shifted from professional calm. He finally reached for his briefcase, moving slowly and deliberately. The crowd tensed. Frank's hand tightened on his radio. Diane stepped back as if Terrence might explode into violence, but Terrence simply opened the briefcase with practiced precision. The contents remained hidden from view, but his movements suggested this was a routine he had performed thousands of times. "Ms. Fletcher, Mr. Walsh." His voice carried a new undertone, not anger, but something far more dangerous: complete certainty. He glanced at his Rolex. The platinum case caught the harsh fluorescent lighting. "You have exactly 3 minutes before this conversation becomes the most expensive mistake of your careers." His phone buzzed again. "Corporate headquarters, urgent," flashed across the screen. For the second time, he declined the call. Maya's live stream hit 643 viewers. Jasmine's professional stream reached her 47,000 followers. The hashtag #BankingWhileBlack was trending in 4 major cities. Nobody in that marble lobby could have predicted what was about to happen next. Final humiliation. Attempt. Diane's confidence reached dangerous heights. The crowd's support, Walsh's backing, and Frank's intimidating presence made her feel invincible. She decided to deliver what she believed would be the killing blow. "Are you threatening us?" Her voice cracked with false indignation. "Frank, did you hear that threat? This man just threatened bank employees." Walsh nodded gravely. "Sir, we're calling the police right now for harassment and intimidation of financial institution staff. That's a federal crime." Frank reached for his radio. "This is Miller at Metropolitan Financial. We need officers for a Code 7 situation, possible 1054. The police codes meant nothing to most people in the lobby, but they sounded official enough to make the crowd murmur approval. Several customers pulled out their phones to record what they expected to be an arrest. Diane stepped forward, her voice rising to address the entire lobby. "This is what happens when they think they belong in civilized society. Some people just don't understand boundaries." The words hit the marble walls and echoed back like thunder. Maya's live stream viewer count exploded to 1,247. Comments flooded her screen faster than she could process them. Even some previously supportive customers looked uncomfortable with Diane's language. An elderly customer in the corner whispered to his wife, "Maybe we should leave, Margaret. This feels wrong." But the woman with the bleached hair and designer bags stepped closer. "No, stay. Someone needs to witness proper security protocols being enforced. This is exactly why we pay premium fees." Corporate arrogance. Peaks. Walsh pulled out his phone and began dialing. "I'm calling our legal department. We need documentations of this incident for our insurance company." "Excellent," Diane added, her voice dripping with vindication. "Let's get everything on record. His threatening behavior, his refusal to provide proper identification, his obvious intent to disrupt our business operations." She turned to address the growing crowd of onlookers. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption to your banking experience. Sometimes security requires decisive action to protect our valued customers." A young professional in the corner began clapping slowly. Others joined in. The applause grew into a show of support for what they perceived as strong management protecting their interests. Maya felt sick watching the crowd's reaction. Her live stream comments exploded with outrage. "Stop clapping! This is disgusting! Where are the real adults?" The surveillance state Frank positioned himself strategically to block Terrence's view of the exits. "Sir, I need you to remain perfectly still while we sort this out. Any sudden movements will be interpreted as aggressive behavior." Walsh nodded approvingly. "Frank, make sure you're recording everything. We have 3 security cameras focused on this area, plus all these customer phones. If he tries anything, we'll have multiple angles of evidence." Diane laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. "Technology doesn't lie, unlike some people who walk into places they don't belong." She gestured toward a security camera mounted in the corner. "That's a 4K resolution camera with facial recognition software. It's probably already running background checks on him right now. The technological intimidation was designed to make Terrence feel trapped, monitored, and powerless. Diane clearly believed she had assembled an unassailable fortress of authority around herself. 10:58 a.m., 2 minutes until board meeting. The psychological warfare. "You know what I think?" Diane continued, emboldened by the crowd's support. "I think this whole thing is a setup, some kind of social media stunt designed to make us look bad." She pointed accusingly at Maya's phone. "That girl's been recording since he walked in. This is probably some activist group trying to create a viral video." Walsh's eyes lit up with the possibility. "A coordinated attack on our institution's reputation. That would explain his expensive clothes, their costumes, props for their little performance." Frank nodded seriously. "Makes sense. Professional agitators often dress the part to seem legitimate." The conspiracy theory spread through the crowd like wildfire. Customers began nodding and murmuring agreement. The narrative had shifted from simple discrimination to defending against an elaborate hoax. "Well," Diane announced triumphantly, "if they want a performance, we'll give them one. Frank, arrest him for trespassing and fraud." The moment of truth. Through all the chaos, accusations, and mounting hostility, Terrence remained an island of absolute calm. His breathing stayed measured. His posture never changed. The expensive briefcase sat open on his lap, its contents still hidden from view. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for the climactic arrest they expected. Phone cameras focused like laser sights. The marble lobby felt like a coliseum where gladiators faced lions. Terrence reached inside his briefcase with deliberate precision and withdrew a single item. The lobby held its collective breath. In his hand was a corporate identification badge. Not a simple employee ID, but an executive access card with distinctive holographic security features. The badge was larger than standard issue, with a titanium frame that caught the overhead lights like a beacon. The text was clearly visible to everyone within 20 feet. Terrence Washington, Chief Executive Officer, Metropolitan Financial Group. The corporate logo, a distinctive eagle with spread wings, was identical to the massive one mounted behind Diane's desk, identical to the smaller versions on every piece of letterhead, identical to the building's exterior signage. The freeze-complete silence descended on the marble lobby. Not a whisper, not a breath. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause its mechanical hum. Diane's face underwent a transformation that would have been comical under different circumstances. The color drained from her cheeks so rapidly that her foundation became visible as a stark contrast against her suddenly pale skin. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Walsh's coffee cup slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers. The ceramic shattered against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Dark liquid spread across the pristine surface in an abstract pattern that seemed to mirror the chaos of the moment. Frank's hand froze halfway to his radio. His massive frame, so intimidating moments before, seemed to shrink as he took 3 instinctive steps backward. The confidence that had carried him through 20 years of security work evaporated instantly. The digital explosion. Maya's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands. "Oh my God," she whispered into her live stream. "He's the CEO. He's the actual CEO of the bank. This is the CEO of Metropolitan Financial Group." Her viewer count jumped from 1,247 to 3,891 in 30 seconds. The notification sounds became a constant electronic symphony. The comments section became a blur of capital letters and exclamation points. "Plot twist of the century! She called the CEO boy. He owns the bank. She's so fired. This is insane. Someone call CNN. Best karma ever." Jasmine Reed zoomed in with her professional camera, capturing every detail of the badge, every expression of shock, every moment of the unfolding disaster. Her 47,000 followers were witnessing the business story of the year. The hashtag #PlotTwist began trending alongside hashed banking while black. Share notifications exploded across multiple platforms. Local news desks started receiving tips about a major story developing at Metropolitan Financial. The revelation unfolds. Terrence stood slowly, his movements controlled and measured. The transformation was remarkable. He was no longer the man being humiliated. He was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation who had just witnessed his employees commit career suicide in real time. "Ms. Fletcher," his voice remained conversational, but now carried the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. "Congratulations! You've just called the Chief Executive Officer of Metropolitan Financial Group, boy!" The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Diane's hands began shaking visibly. That's impossible. You can't be. How was I supposed to? "By treating every customer with dignity," Terrence replied. "That's Banking 101, something we apparently need to review comprehensively in our training programs." Walsh found his voice, though it emerged as barely more than a strangled whisper. "Sir, Mr. Washington, sir, this is all a terrible misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Terrence's eyebrow raised slightly. "You assumed I was a criminal based solely on my appearance. Your employee used racial slurs. Your security guard prepared to have me arrested for the crime of existing while black. Which part was the misunderstanding, Mr. Walsh?" The desperate scramble. Diane began crying, her carefully applied mascara creating dark streaks down her cheeks like war paint in reverse. I was following security protocols. I didn't mean. I would never." "Security protocols that assume black customers are criminals?" Terrence's question hung in the air like an indictment waiting for a verdict. Frank had backed himself against a marble pillar, as if trying to disappear into the stone itself. His radio crackled. "Miller, what's your status? Do you need backup?" He fumbled for the device with shaking hands. Negative. False alarm. Stand down. Definitely stand down." The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Copy that. False alarm logged." Walsh stepped forward, his political instincts finally kicking in despite his shock. "Mr. Washington, I assure you this doesn't represent our normal standards. Diane was having a difficult morning and—" "Mr. Walsh," Terrence's interruption was surgical in its precision. "Are you suggesting that racism is acceptable when someone is having a difficult morning?" The question left Walsh speechless. Around the lobby, customers who had been enthusiastically supportive of the discrimination minutes earlier now studied their shoes or pretended to be absorbed in their phones. The corporate reality check. Terrence's phone buzzed again. This time, instead of declining, he answered the speaker. "Terrence, where are you?" The voice belonged to Sarah Carter, his executive assistant. "The board meeting is supposed to start in 2 minutes. The acquisition team from Dallas is already in the conference room." "Sarah, cancel the meeting. We have a crisis situation at our downtown branch that requires immediate attention." "Crisis? What kind of crisis?" Terrence looked directly at Diane, then Walsh, then let his gaze sweep across the entire lobby. "The kind that could cost us our federal banking license if not handled properly." Sarah's voice became urgent. "I'll notify legal and PR immediately. Do you need the crisis management team?" "Already on it. Also, contact Marcus Williams in HR. We'll need to implement emergency protocols." The final revelation. Maya's live stream had reached 6,742 viewers. Major social media accounts were beginning to repost her video. Local news vans were being dispatched. Terrence turned to address the crowd and cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be absolutely clear about what happened here today. What you witnessed was not an isolated incident of poor customer service. This was systematic discrimination based on racial prejudice." He paused, letting the words sink in. "The board meeting I was supposed to attend." He glanced at his Rolex. 30 seconds from now? Item 1 on our agenda was reviewing branch performance metrics and management effectiveness across all metropolitan financial locations. Walsh's face went ashen as the implications hit him. His branch, his management, his career, all under review by the man he had just humiliated. Outside, the first news van pulled up to the curb. The data-driven destruction. Terrence walked slowly around the marble lobby, his footsteps echoing with the authority of ownership. Every eye followed his movement. The cameras tracked him like searchlights. He was no longer defending himself. He was conducting a corporate autopsy in real time. Ms. Fletcher. His voice carried the precision of a surgeon making the first incision. This branch processed $47.3 million in transactions last quarter. You just risked a federal discrimination lawsuit against a corporation with $2.8 billion in assets. He paused beside a framed photograph showing the branch's grand opening ceremony. The Fair Housing Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 all apply to financial institutions. Violation of any single provision carries fines up to $16,000 per incident. Diane's sobbing intensified. The mathematics of her mistake were becoming clear. But that's just the beginning, Terrence continued, his tone remaining conversational despite delivering career-ending news. Federal banking regulators can revoke our license to operate. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency takes discrimination complaints very seriously. Walsh found his voice, though it cracked like an adolescent's. Mr. Washington, surely we can resolve this internally. No need to involve federal agencies. Terrence turned to face him directly. Mr. Walsh, you suggested calling the police to arrest me for existing while black in your bank. Internal resolution was never an option. Public corporate accountability. Maya's live stream had exploded to over 12,000 viewers. The notification sounds from her phone created a constant electronic symphony. Comments poured in faster than human eyes could process them. Terrence addressed the cameras and crowd with the composure of a CEO handling a quarterly earnings call. Ladies and gentlemen, what you witnessed today violates every principle Metropolitan Financial Group was founded upon. His voice carried across the marble lobby, ensuring every word reached every microphone. Ms. Fletcher, you are suspended immediately without pay, pending a comprehensive federal investigation into your conduct. Diane's legs gave out. She collapsed into her ergonomic chair, her professional facade completely shattered. Please, Mr. Washington, I have children. I need this job. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Your children deserve better than a mother who treats fellow human beings as criminals based on their skin color, Terrence replied without hesitation. And your apology comes only after discovering my position, not after recognizing your humanity failure. The ultimatum delivered. Terrence pulled out his phone and dialed a number from memory. The call connected immediately. Marcus Williams, Head of Human Resources, he announced, putting the call on speaker for the entire lobby to hear. Terrence, I thought you were at the board meeting. Change of plans, Marcus. I need immediate emergency protocols activated for the downtown branch. We have a code-red discrimination incident that requires federal reporting. Marcus's voice became urgent and professional. I'll mobilize the crisis team immediately. Do we need legal on site? Already en route. Also contact our media relations department. This is going viral as we speak. Terrence glanced at Maya's phone, where the viewer count had reached 15,847. Understood. What's the scope of personnel action required? Terrence looked directly at Walsh. Mr. Stephen Walsh, branch manager, has 24 hours to submit his resignation letter or face termination for failure to maintain federal compliance standards. Walsh's face turned the color of ash. 23 years with the company, 2 promotions, a pending retirement plan, all evaporating in real time. As for security protocols, Terrence continued, turning toward Frank Miller, your training clearly failed to distinguish between legitimate customers and perceived threats. You're suspended pending comprehensive retraining. Frank's intimidating presence had completely deflated. The man who had loomed over Terrence minutes earlier now seemed to shrink with each word. Federal consequences spelled out. Marcus, this incident will be reported to 3 federal agencies within the next 4 hours, Terrence continued, his voice carrying the weight of institutional authority. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency will conduct a branch audit. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will investigate our customer service protocols. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission will review our hiring and training practices. The legal specificity sent a chill through the lobby. This wasn't just corporate discipline, this was federal oversight that could reshape the entire institution. What's the potential financial exposure? Marcus asked. Conservative estimate? $2.3 million in fines, legal fees, and remediation costs. That's assuming we cooperate fully and implement immediate reforms. Walsh's knees buckled. The man who had confidently dismissed Terrence as a character now faced the destruction of everything he had built, the systematic response. Jasmine Reed had arrived with her professional camera crew, transforming the lobby into an impromptu press conference. Her 47,000 followers were witnessing corporate accountability in real time. Mr. Washington, she called out, can you comment on how widespread this type of discrimination might be across your branch network? Terrence paused, considering the question carefully. That's exactly what we're going to find out. All 847 metropolitan financial branches will undergo comprehensive bias auditing within 60 days. The scope of the response was staggering. Nearly 1,000 locations, tens of thousands of employees, millions of customers affected by the ripple effects of this single incident. The cost of this audit? Jasmine pressed. $4.7 million allocated immediately for anti-discrimination infrastructure, training, and oversight. Some things are more important than quarterly profits. Technology and transparency. Sarah Carter, my executive assistant, is implementing new protocols as we speak, Terrence announced to the crowd. Body cameras will be mandatory for all security personnel. Customer interaction software will flag discriminatory language in real time using AI monitoring. Frank Miller, still pressed against his marble pillar, looked sick. Every interaction he'd ever had would be scrutinized under the new system. Additionally, we're establishing a customer advisory board with real oversight authority. Maya Carter, he nodded toward the young woman still live streaming, you'll be receiving a formal invitation to serve as our paid diversity consultant. Maya's phone nearly slipped from her hands. Me? Are you serious? Dead serious. Your documentation of this incident possibly saved our company's reputation. You deserve recognition and compensation for that service. Corporate transformation. Corporate. The phone call with Marcus continued on speaker, ensuring transparency. Marcus, I want new hiring mandates implemented immediately. 40% management diversity requirement across all positions within 18 months. That's aggressive, Terrence. Current management pipeline might not support. Then we change the pipeline. Promote from within. Partner with historically black colleges and universities. Expand our recruitment beyond the usual suspects. The crowd listened to corporate policy being rewritten in real time. What had begun as a discrimination incident was becoming a blueprint for industry transformation. Customer satisfaction metrics will be broken down by demographics, Terrence continued. Monthly reporting mandatory. Any branch showing disparities gets immediate intervention. The public commitment. Terrence ended the call and addressed the growing crowd. Local news vans were arriving outside. The story was spreading beyond social media into traditional journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a public commitment. This incident ends here, not with lawsuits, not with settlements, but with systematic change that ensures it never happens again. He walked to Diane's desk and picked up her nameplate. Ms. Fletcher, your position will be eliminated. Not filled by someone else eliminated entirely. We are restructuring our customer service approach from the ground up. Diane's crying intensified, but Terrence wasn't finished. However, after you complete 80 hours of bias awareness training, we'll discuss a different role. one where your experience with discrimination can help train others to do better. The offer of redemption surprised everyone, including Diane herself. Federal Recognition Preview. This transformation will become a model for the entire banking industry, Terrence concluded. The U.S. Treasury Department has already expressed interest in our approach. We'll be testifying before Congress about banking discrimination within 6 months. The scope of the change was breathtaking. A single incident of discrimination was becoming a catalyst for nationwide reform. Walsh, Terrence turned to the branch manager one final time. Your resignation letter is due on my desk by noon tomorrow. Use the time wisely. Reflect on how unconscious bias destroyed your career. Outside, 4 news vans had arrived. Reporters were setting up cameras. The story was about to go national. The marble lobby, which had been a scene of humiliation 30 minutes earlier, had transformed into the epicenter of corporate accountability and social change. Immediate consequences. Swift justice. Within 2 hours of the incident, the corporate machine moved with surgical precision. Diane Fletcher's access badge was deactivated remotely. Her corporate email account displayed an automatic message. This employee is currently under investigation for violation of federal anti-discrimination policies. Stephen Walsh sat in his corner office, staring at a blank resignation letter on his computer screen. 23 years of banking career reduced to a cursor blinking on an empty document. His secretary had already begun boxing his personal items. Frank Miller reported to HR for mandatory retraining. His security certification was suspended pending completion of a 40-hour bias awareness program. The intimidating presence that had defined his career was being systematically dismantled and rebuilt. Revolutionary systematic changes. The Dignity First banking policy went into effect immediately across all metropolitan financial locations. Every customer would be greeted within 20 seconds of entering any branch. No exceptions, no assumptions, no discrimination. Technology transformed the banking experience overnight. AI monitoring software analyzed every customer interaction in real time. Phrases like, "your type," "people like you," or "certain standards" triggered immediate supervisor alerts. The system flagged potential discrimination before it could escalate. Body cameras became mandatory equipment for all security personnel. The footage was reviewed daily by a dedicated bias oversight team. Frank Miller's intimidation tactics would never again go unnoticed or unchallenged. Customer interaction training became mandatory for every employee, from janitors to executives. The program included implicit bias recognition, cultural sensitivity workshops, and real-world scenario practice. Quarterly refresher courses ensured continuous improvement. Financial investment in change. Metropolitan Financial Group allocated $4.7 million for comprehensive anti-discrimination infrastructure. The investment covered technology upgrades, training programs, oversight personnel, and community partnerships. Maya Carter accepted her position as paid diversity consultant with a $75,000 annual contract. Her first assignment? Designing customer experience audits that would prevent future incidents like the one she had documented. The company partnered with the local NAACP chapter, granting them quarterly oversight authority. Branch performance would be measured not just by profit margins, but by community trust and inclusive service metrics. Federal recognition and industry impact. The U.S. Treasury Department officially cited Metropolitan Financial as a model for discrimination prevention in banking. The case study became required reading for federal banking examiners nationwide. Congressional subcommittees requested Terrence's testimony on banking discrimination. His appearance before the House Financial Services Committee resulted in new federal guidelines requiring bias training for all federally insured financial institutions. 15 other major banks voluntarily adopted Metropolitan's monitoring systems within 6 months. The ripple effect of one discriminatory incident was reshaping an entire industry's approach to customer service. Personal transformation stories. Diane Fletcher completed her 80-hour bias awareness training with a surprising outcome. Her experience as both perpetrator and victim of systemic discrimination transformed her into an effective internal trainer. She began conducting sensitivity workshops across the branch network. "I was wrong," became her standard opening statement. Completely, shamefully wrong. But wrong can become right if we're willing to do the hard work of change. Her children, initially ashamed of her public humiliation, eventually expressed pride in her commitment to redemption. The family attended diversity awareness events together, learning and growing from the painful experience. Stephen Walsh's resignation led to unexpected personal growth. He enrolled in a diversity leadership program at the local community college. His final act as branch manager was recommending 3 diverse candidates for leadership development programs. Community healing and engagement. The downtown branch transformed into a flagship location for inclusive banking practices. Community meetings were held monthly in the marble lobby that had once been a scene of discrimination. Local organizations used the space for financial literacy workshops, targeting underserved populations. Cultural competency became embedded in every aspect of operations. Multilingual staff were hired to serve the diverse metropolitan area. Community artwork replaced generic corporate decorations, reflecting the neighborhood's rich, multicultural heritage. Customer advisory boards gained real power to influence policy. Quarterly surveys tracked satisfaction across demographic lines. Any disparities triggered immediate investigation and correction protocols. Measurable results. Within 6 months, customer complaints dropped by 73% across all metropolitan financial branches. Employee satisfaction surveys showed significant improvement as staff felt proud to work for an organization committed to social justice. The branch's customer base became more diverse as word spread about the transformation. Minority-owned businesses began choosing Metropolitan for their banking needs, attracted by the company's demonstrated commitment to equality. Federal regulators conducted surprise audits and found Metropolitan in full compliance with all anti-discrimination guidelines. The company became a preferred partner for government financial services contracts. Educational legacy. Harvard Business School developed a case study titled Leadership Under Fire: The Washington Incident. MBA students across the country analyzed the crisis management and corporate transformation that emerged from a single moment of discrimination. Georgetown University launched a longitudinal study tracking discrimination reduction in financial services, using Metropolitan's model as the baseline for industry comparison. Early results showed promising trends toward more equitable customer treatment. The intellectual victory. No lawsuits were filed. No settlement money changed hands. Change came through corporate responsibility, federal oversight, and community engagement. The power of systematic reform proved more effective than punitive legal action. Diane Fletcher's transformation from perpetrator to educator demonstrated that people could change when given proper education and opportunities for redemption. Frank Miller's retraining showed that bias could be unlearned with commitment and effort. The marble lobby, once a battlefield of discrimination, became a symbol of hope and transformation in the heart of the metropolitan business district. Values that changed everything. This story proves that dignity should never be negotiable. Terrence Washington didn't respond with anger or lawsuits. He chose systematic accountability that created lasting change. Corporate responsibility became more powerful than revenge. Community engagement proved stronger than isolation. Real transformation happens when those with power choose to wield it responsibly. One moment of discrimination became a catalyst for industry-wide reform, touching nearly 1 million bank customers across 847 locations. Personal legacy. That inspires Terrence's leadership style became the subject of academic study at Harvard Business School. Students worldwide analyze how crisis management can transform institutional culture. His approach demonstrated that intellectual victory surpasses monetary settlements. Maya Carter's live stream documentation sparked a national conversation about everyday discrimination. Her 2.8 million views created awareness that transcended social media algorithms. Her evolution from customer to consultant shows how witnessing injustice can become a career in social change. These touching stories remind us that real-life stories often contain the most powerful lessons. Black stories like this one challenge assumptions and inspire growth in unexpected ways. Social impact beyond banking. The hashtag dignity first. Banking movement spread across industries. Retail chains, healthcare systems, and educational institutions adopted similar monitoring technologies. Federal regulators cited Metropolitan's model in creating new discrimination prevention guidelines. Maya's documentation techniques are now taught in journalism schools as examples of effective citizen reporting. Her approach to capturing discrimination while maintaining factual objectivity became a standard for social justice documentation. Cultural shift continues. Metropolitan Financial Group's stock rose 7% following positive corporate responsibility coverage. Investors increasingly value companies that prioritize social justice alongside profits. The business case for equality became undeniable. Legislative influence followed corporate action. 3 state-level anti-discrimination bills referenced the Washington Standard in their language. Policymakers recognized that private sector innovation could drive public sector reform. Measurable change. Life stories like Terrence's prove that individual courage can create institutional transformation. Federal policy now requires bias training across the financial sector. 23 major banks implemented similar AI monitoring systems within 18 months. The Georgetown University study tracking discrimination reduction shows 34% improvement in equitable customer treatment across participating institutions. Academic research validates the real-world impact of principled leadership. The ongoing mission, touching stories of transformation continue emerging from Metropolitan's branches. Employees report feeling proud to work for an organization committed to justice. Customers share positive experiences that contrast sharply with the original incident. Community partnerships have expanded beyond banking into educational scholarships, small business development, and financial literacy programs. Corporate social responsibility became embedded in daily operations rather than remaining a marketing slogan. Your voice matters. These Black stories and life stories prove that change is possible when people refuse to accept discrimination. Your experiences matter. Your documentation can spark transformation. Have you witnessed workplace discrimination? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice adds to the growing chorus demanding dignity and respect for everyone. Subscribe to Black Tales Stories for more inspiring reversals of injustice. These real-life stories demonstrate that accountability and education can triumph over prejudice. Share this video to remind others that dignity should never be conditional. Together, we can ensure that touching stories like Terrence's become catalysts for lasting change rather than isolated incidents. Sometimes, the most powerful response to prejudice isn't anger. It's accountability backed by action. Real change happens when those with power choose to use it responsibly. Subscribe to Black Tales Stories. Because every story matters, every voice counts. Every change starts with someone brave enough to speak truth to power.